Oh, hello there. Yes, well, good grief, a new week. Nippy, innit? It's suddenly become winter. Like, it's like we've skipped autumn altogether. Anyway, today I want to sort of link to things which on the surface may not be directly linked, but I think in many ways they are about our fairly blighted country. Yes. If you want to know things about where parties are going, you have to look at the fringe. Okay, we get to see all the Kemi Badenocks of the world making mistakes about maternity leave. Now, she actually does mean that. She really does think that people shouldn't be paid. Anyway, yeah, it's no good for the economy. It's a tax, as she said. Anyway, leaving that aside, yeah, you need to look at the fringe, because the fringe is exactly where the money is, if you like. And a couple of people have pointed out Maximilian Robespierre, for example, linked down below, some of the stuff at the Reform fringe. And there was a call there by friend of the channel, Connor Tomlinson, for mass deportations. Now, normally when it's the Lotus Eaters, they call it remigration, which is going east, okay? It's very much that concept. Yeah, it's a bit harsh, isn't it? No. Yes. Anyway, he also cropped up with his equally lovely mate from Migration Watch on the New Culture Forum a couple of days ago. And again, you can watch that down below. But what's happening in British politics is those very nasty authoritarian voices are gaining enormously big traction, because they see this opportunity to drag the right collectively into a place whereby basically we will have a kind of very authoritarian, racially based state, because that's what they've always wanted. They might well argue X, Y and Z about the fact that they met a black bloke once in a shop, but people like Connor have never had a job in their life. Those three guys that you see on the New Culture Forum have never had a job in their life. They don't exist in the same universe that you and I do. And it's fine to call from very extreme policies if you have nothing to do with them. Right? Now, what I would suggest strongly is, if we want to have mass deportations, I want Connor to be in charge of it, and I want him to be answerable. Because when we talk about something like that, it sounds very nebulous, but what it really means is exactly the types of things that were going on under Theresa May and that hostile environment. Yes, sounded okay, a hostile environment. That sounds okay, you can live with that, can't you? Except, of course, well, people died with that, didn't they? They were killed on planes because they didn't want to leave. Well, they should leave if they haven't got the right documents, even if the government have lost their documents. Yes. Now, on a personal level, right, there was a great piece about young autistic people being trapped in secure mental health units a couple of days ago. Labour MP pointing this out. Jen Clark, I think it was. Yes. And yeah, I just want to talk briefly about that and kind of link the two things together, because most of the work that I've done in about the last decade has been with very, very vulnerable people, young people who have suffered a great deal from a variety of different reasons in terms of their mental health. And in terms of the autistic young people that I work with, quite often they've ended up in secure mental health units at the age of, say, 14 or 15. It's kind of like the last place you can go to when you've exhausted all options. For the most part, these kids aren't any different from the types of kids that autistic kids that I was working with in not particularly mainstream schools necessarily, but specialist schools. It's just that they've fallen through the cracks and there is now nowhere else for them to go. So they end up being locked together with other very seriously mentally ill young people, and they can't get out. Why can't they get out? Well, because in order to get out, they have to have a school placement. And in order to get a school placement, they need to not be in a secure mental health unit. Yes. So these people, some of them now, there's about 2,000 odd of them, will basically, some of them, unless they have somebody who's prepared to put some work in, will basically end up dying in those units. Now, why am I linking these two things together? Well, because if the economics that people argue for, and the economics that a lot of people have been arguing for, like Connor Tomlinson, because after all, he's a lot smarter than I am, result directly in those types of things. That's what those policies lead to. And unless we have a culture in this country whereby those people that bring in those policies are directly made liable for the dead person at the end of it, then we're not going to get anywhere. You may think of Grenfell and the fact that basically nobody will be charged with anything for that. Nobody. 70 dead people. Nobody. Because they're not the type of people, the dead are not the type of people that matter. And very often the young kids that I work with in a variety of different situations are also people that don't matter. But the problem is it's really expensive in the long run to throw somebody on the scrap heap. And the rhetoric of our delightful friends like Connor lead to that. It's a real waste. You can decide that you don't really like brown people, or autistic people, or trans people, or whatever it might be. But societal cost of these things is monumental. All right? I am in agreement with Che Guevara that the life of a single person is worth more than all the riches in the world. You can disagree with Che Guevara, but I think he was right about that. Unless, of course, they weren't English, in which case it would be fine, however we define that. Yes, anyway, do have a lovely day, but do think about what these people are saying, and do think about where these nasty little boys in their ties might be trying to push us to, because it won't be their lives. Mind you, if we're going to have a large amount of deportations, I can think of a few. I'm sure you can as well.